The National Desk, America's News, now.
More than 70 million people under heat alerts as we come on the air, where it's worst and how long it'll last.
This morning, with deep pride and soberness, I will pardon over 175,000 convictions.
The largest state pardon to date that reverses course on marijuana-related convictions ahead. Why Maryland's governor says the bold action is necessary. Plus, taking care of Fido is getting out of reach for more Americans. Coming up, what tens of thousands of pet owners can expect as one insurance company slashes its coverage. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Nearly 73 million people are under heat alerts today. Right now, the worst of it over the center and eastern half of the United States. Parts of Missouri and Illinois in particular have been under extreme heat warnings, placing vulnerable groups of people at risk of heat-related illnesses. The heat wave is expected to continue throughout the week, bringing the possibility of triple-digit heat to much of the Northeast. High temp records could be set in cities like Chicago, Detroit, Pittsburgh, New York, and Boston by midweek. Washington, D.C. could see its first June 100-degree day in the last 8 years over the weekend. And an update on that massive wildfire burning north of Los Angeles. It is now 8% contained after scorching more than 24 square miles. At least 1,200 people had to be evacuated from the Hungry Valley recreational area on Saturday. Firefighters said the fire could still grow more. Do social media apps need a warning label? The Surgeon General is calling on Congress to act to protect kids and teens from the dangers of social media by implementing something similar to what you see on packs of cigarettes. National correspondent Atral Nashar has more.
It's an emergency endangering our most vulnerable, and it fits in the palm of their hand. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy says the harms posed by social media to teens warrant a warning label stating what it can do to their mental health. It's a move that requires action from Congress.
There's growing evidence of harm. It shows us, in fact, that when adolescents spend more than 3 hours a day on social media, we're seeing an association with a doubling of risk of anxiety and depression symptoms.
A real and present danger, considering the average teen spends almost 5 hours on social media each day, according to Gallup. Parents have been pressing lawmakers to address this for years. It's not uncommon to see them on Capitol Hill lobbying for change. Back in February, we caught up with Naveen Radwan between her meetings with lawmakers. The California mom of 3 almost lost her teenage daughter to an eating disorder.
I know for a fact that the trigger for her was social media.
As for the social media companies, they generally favor regulation at the App Store level and also provide tools and tips for parents to monitor their child's use.
What do you make of the argument that this is on parents at the end of the day?
It's not. I put every single restriction available on those phones for my kids. I made sure they didn't get phones until after they were 13.
Many children are on social media well before they turn 13. New Wall Street Journal reporting highlights just how exposed young girls are to grown men. They detail an account of an unnamed mom in the Midwest who supervised her influencer daughter's Instagram account, which at one point had more than 100,000 followers, about 92% of whom were male. Meta shut down the account in a matter of months. Lawmakers, parents, the social media companies themselves agree more needs to be done to make these platforms safer. There's just no consensus on how. A simple warning label could be a start. The moral test of any society is how well it protects its children, the Surgeon General writes. We have the expertise, resources, and tools to make social media safe for our kids. Now is the time to summon the will to act. Our children's well-being is at stake. In Washington, I'm Atral Nashar reporting.
Atra, thank you. 2 people are in custody after multiple stabbings near an Indianapolis strip mall this morning. Police say at least 9 people were injured. 5 were taken to the hospital, including 1 person of interest. Police believe there was a fight between 2 groups, but they continue to investigate. In Chicago, police are searching for the suspect in a mass shooting at a gas station this morning. 6 people were hurt. A 15-year-old was taken to the hospital in serious condition. 4 others are in fair condition tonight. In Round Rock, Texas, police are searching for a suspect in a deadly shooting at a Juneteenth festival on Saturday. 2 people were killed and 14 were hurt in the shooting that police say happened after a fight. This as we learn an 8-year-old boy and his mother are still in the hospital in critical condition after a shooting at a suburban Detroit splash pad on Saturday that injured 9 in total. Investigators still don't know the motive of the shooter, Michael Nash, who killed himself after the attack. Pardoning pot convictions. Tonight, a new executive order on the books in Maryland pardoning 175,000 convictions in the state related to the possession of marijuana. The action making Maryland the first state in the country to issue mass pardons on cannabis paraphernalia related convictions. Governor Wes Moore saying today it's a step in healing decades of social and economic injustices against Black and brown communities.
It doesn't erase the fact that having a conviction on your record means a harder time with everything. Everything. From housing to employment to education.
The pardons apply to convictions for low-level possession of cannabis. They will not result in the release of people from jail. Maryland legalized recreational use of marijuana in 2023 after voters approved a constitutional amendment. The state's judiciary will note the pardon on each individual electronic docket, but the convictions will not be expunged. In a contentious election year, some Republican lawmakers calling for action after allegations of improper voter registration. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins dives into the claims and the concern.
As November gets closer, Republicans zeroing in on what they see as a problematic weak spot in the election system, non-citizens registering to vote. The New York Post reporting 49 U.S. states are giving out voter registration forms at welfare offices and other government agencies to migrants without asking for any proof of citizenship. Arizona banned the practice. This comes as some blue cities and states across the country are expanding voting to non-citizens in state and local elections.
Washington, D.C., New York, Maryland, California, and others have passed legislation to allow non-citizens to vote in elections. This causes a host of problems.
Non-citizens are not allowed to vote in federal elections. Republican Brian Stile led a House hearing on the issue last month.
Non-citizen voting reduces confidence in our elections.
Critics argue this issue is not widespread enough to deserve the attention it's getting from the GOP. A Heritage Foundation database shows only 85 cases of non-citizen voting allegations from 2002 to 2023. We spoke with the Campaign Legal Center's Lotta Knott.
Non-citizens attempting to vote, instances of that are very, very rare, and that's because it's a crime. The penalties for it include imprisonment, potential deportation. These are huge deterrents. And state election officials also have systems in place to verify voter eligibility.
Democrats say Republicans have other motives for pushing this issue.
The hearing isn't about law and order. It's about laying the foundation for the next big lie. It's about saying that illegal voting is the cause of an election defeat.
And Amira, Republicans introduced a new bill they say will clear up any confusion about non-citizen voting. But even if this act, it's called the SAVE Act, does pass the GOP-controlled House, it still faces a tough road ahead in the Democrat-controlled Senate.
And Kayla, do we know when this bill could be brought to a floor vote?
Well, a date for a floor vote hasn't been set yet. It did recently advance out of committee, so it's heading there. Sources say we could see a vote in the House before lawmakers leave for the August recess. Amira.
Kayla Gaskins reporting live for us from Washington, D.C. Thank you as always. President Joe Biden's new Title IX expansion has been temporarily blocked in 6 more states, making 10 so far, and you can see them in red there. Biden's plan would give Title IX protections to all LGBTQ+ students and expand the definition of sexual harassment at schools and colleges. A federal judge today ruled the regulation, quote, arbitrary. At least 5 more lawsuits from Republican states are in the courts right now. The Tennessee Star publication was in court today to fight for their First Amendment rights. Last week, they published parts of the Covenant School Shooters Manifesto that was leaked to them. The court is deciding whether to allow the manifesto to be released at all. The state's attorney says the publication violated the court's order, while the paper says its actions are protected by the First Amendment. No ruling was handed out today. The man charged with killing 4 University of Idaho students is due in court next week. Brian Kohberger is scheduled for a hearing on June 27th. That's when we could find out when a trial date in the case is set. Prosecutors say they've linked Kohberger to the 2022 stabbings through DNA and video evidence. A judge entered a not guilty plea on Kohberger's behalf last May. And coming up, where millions of Americans are at risk of heavy rain, large hail, and damaging winds tonight and tomorrow. Then the Education Department says 2 universities did not do enough to respond to reported hateful attacks. What the schools have to do now. And a new school book ban goes into effect in Tennessee in just a few weeks. Why some people are voicing concerns. We're back in just 90 seconds. Right now, 27 million Americans at risk of severe thunderstorms in the north central plains into the upper Mississippi Valley. Damaging winds and large hail are possible tonight. These threats will shift further north by tomorrow. There's also a heavy rain threat in the Gulf Coast tonight and tomorrow. Meanwhile, in the Gulf of Mexico, a potential tropical storm brewing. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration puts a 70% chance it will develop into a named storm in the next 2 days. It would be the first of the season. While it's expected not to make landfall in the United States, it has the potential to bring flash flooding to areas in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas tomorrow through Thursday. Tonight, Israel's war cabinet disbanded. The coalition created just days after October 7th to make wartime decisions with a unified government a thing of the past. Just days after a leading opposition party leader, Benny Gantz, left the cabinet. Officials with Netanyahu's Likud party saying the prime minister is forming a new small group with whom he will consult, though major policy decisions will now be made by a wider Israeli security cabinet that includes far-right members. This as new reports reignite critical questions over just how much Israeli defense officials knew before Hamas's October 7th attack. Israeli media reporting this evening that a newly obtained document proves the IDF had detailed knowledge of Hamas's plan to raid Israel and kidnap 250 people weeks before it took place. Yet due to prevailing misconceptions about Hamas's intentions and possible negligence by senior officials, the warning signs were not acted upon. And right now, fighting between Israel and the paramilitary group Hezbollah in Lebanon intensifying after months of clashes at the Lebanese border. An Israeli airstrike killed a key operative of the militant group today, further threatening to escalate the cross-border attacks into a larger conflict. Meantime, here at home, the Education Department with a critical assessment of two universities' handling of heightened tensions surrounding the Israel-Hamas war. The department saying both the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor and CUNY in New York did not do enough to respond to reported anti-Semitic and anti-Palestinian incidents on their campuses. As a result, the schools will adhere to a number of changes, including reporting discrimination complaints directly to the department, along with revising policies and trainings to better respond. A live look now at the White House, where tomorrow President Joe Biden is expected to unveil a plan to create a pathway for citizenship for non-legal residents who are married to U.S. citizens. This could impact hundreds of thousands of migrants. Current law says these migrants need to leave the country for up to 10 years before being granted a green card. Biden's plan would allow them to, quote, parole in place within the United States, effectively reversing their illegal status. Meanwhile, in Maryland, authorities right now are asking questions about how a wanted murder suspect from El Salvador ended up in Hartford, only to be arrested for murder of a mother of 5 in the United States. The National Desk's Maxine Stryker has the latest on what we know about Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez.
August 5th, 2023, the death of 37-year-old Rachel Marin, a mother of 5, rocked the Harford County community. Her body discovered along the Ma and Pa Trail in Bel Air.
Rachel's murderer is no longer a free man.
10 months later, police announcing the arrest of 23-year-old Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez, charged with first-degree rape and murder.
Hopefully, he will never have the opportunity to walk free again.
Police say the suspect is a citizen of El Salvador who illegally crossed the border in February of last year after allegedly murdering a woman there a month prior. In March 2023, police say he brutally attacked a 9-year-old girl and her mother in Los Angeles. He's seen leaving the home in this surveillance video police released in August. The FBI says they were able to trace his DNA to potential family in El Salvador, even traveling to the country to help identify the suspect.
The lead we received was related to DNA evidence and allowed investigators to finally put a name to the image of the suspect in the video from Los Angeles, which we released 2 weeks after Rachel's death. After we had the video, we knew what he looked like, but we didn't know who he was.
Police and the FBI tracked him from Prince George's County, Maryland to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where he was arrested last night.
Victor Hernandez did not come here to make a better life for himself or for his family. He came here to escape the crime he committed in El Salvador. He came here and murdered Rachel, and God willing, no one else. But that should have never been allowed to happen. Here in Harford County, we are 1,800 miles away from the southern border, and the American citizens are not safe because of failed immigration policies.
Harford County Sheriff Jeff Gaylor says the suspect has known gang ties and a red notice for his arrest in El Salvador. They also believe he may have had connections to the D.C. area, which brought him close to Maryland.
The trial of American journalist Evan Gershkovich begins next week in Russia, according to a court there. The Wall Street Journal reporter has been imprisoned for more than a year on spying charges that he and his employer deny. The U.S. State Department considers him wrongfully detained. Russian authorities have expressed openness to a prisoner swap, but only after a verdict is reached. Around 100,000 people are going to lose their pet insurance by summer of next year. Nationwide Insurance just announced it was canceling coverage to keep up with spiraling costs in vet care. NerdWallet says 24% of pet owners have pet insurance, which can cover a variety of procedures and treatments. The insurance provider says it will carry pet owners to the end of the term before canceling the coverage. Those impacted will be notified in writing. And in your health alert, cancer doctors more often turning to personalized and targeted radiation therapies for people living with cancer. Medical reporter Liz Bonis shares how it's helping one long-term survivor in a big way.
Hey there, everybody, with the latest update today on Steve's story. He's been in treatment for prostate cancer, you may recall, and his medical team told me he's been quite the inspiration along the way.
So today I'm going to have my 6th radiation treatment in a series of 10.
For more than a decade, Steve Abbott has been doing everything possible to stay one step ahead of this disease.
The idea behind that is to try to bring down some inflammation around my spinal cord that we've recently found from some tumors that are pressing on my spinal cord.
Here at Ohio's University of Cincinnati Cancer Center, the team has customized Steve's radiation care.
So this is actually Steve's CAT scan right here. His spine is in the middle.
With the help of what's called dosimetry.
Dosimetry is where we actually create a computer model of Steve, and then our physicists and our medical dosimetrists will develop a radiation plan that allow these machines to do their work.
Dr. Timothy Struve told me these are the kind of advances that now allow his team to target precisely what Steve needs to continue to celebrate more milestones. Steve and his wife Diana celebrated their 40th anniversary this month.
So this is it's an important place. It's an important place for me.
To this team, however, Steve is the most important member.
And we're all so lucky to be in Steve's presence.
You see, as Dr. Bill Barrett points out, no matter how tough it gets, Steve always moves forward. This week, Steve says the silver lining, while his spine pain goes down, he gets to ride this really cool scooter.
He is an absolute inspiration to everybody around him, and he keeps fighting, and we'll keep fighting with him.
We will, of course, continue to share Steve's story as we learn more, but he hopes if you're a guy watching this, you'll ask your doctor about your own risk for prostate or any other cancer. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
All right, Liz, thank you. And coming up, real estate commissions are changing this summer. What will be different and what that means for buyers when we come back. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
In July, buyer agent commissions no longer are going to be advertised in the multiple listing service.
This is a move to improve transparency in commissions. Right now, the average commission is 5%. That's evenly divided. 2.5% goes to the listing agent and 2.5% to the buyer's agent.
The idea now is that the seller will continue to pay that 2.5% that they've always paid to their listing agent, but then who pays that other 2.5% is kind of up in the air. As a buyer, you're now going to have a little more control over how much you pay your agent.
We have to come up with a policy that complies with the law by July 1.
Williamson County School Board member Eric Welch says this new law is going to have a negative impact on education. He says because this forces schools to remove books by Shakespeare, Hemingway, and Steinbeck off of school library shelves. including the book Roots by Alex Haley.
It's been in our school libraries for nearly 50 years.
Supporters say they are trying to make sure children are protected. But at a work session Thursday, their county attorney, Lisa Carson, weighed in.
But to remove something like Roots or something like art of only indigenous peoples because there's nudity in it, that becomes a huge concern. I mean, I don't think I've made any bones about the fact that I have grave concerns about this law.
Yay! We love you, team! Love you! We're doing a parade.
A trash parade with cans in hand. This neighborhood along Scarborough's Higgins Beach celebrating their Casella trash collector, Dean Ferris.
Dean Ferris has been our garbage collector here down at Higgins Beach area for years. We don't remember him not being here, and he's a huge part of our community.
They recorded their parade to send to Dean, who was recently diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
And he is such a magical man. He makes Fridays special. He stops and helps people get their garbage to the curbside if they're having problems.
And coming up, climbing back in the NBA Finals, a history one team will need to overcome to win it all. A rural Florida county is preparing for a new airport that could transform its economy and bring in over 1,400 new jobs. Leaders in Hendry County, just south of Lake Okeechobee, see the project as a way to create generational opportunities in the largely agricultural community. But there are educational challenges tied to the project. A third of working class adults don't have a high school diploma. Community groups and schools are trying to reduce teacher shortages and invest in adult education. Dallas and Boston, they head into Game 5 of the NBA Finals tonight. Dallas staved off elimination over the weekend when playing on home court, but the Celtics still lead the series 3-1 and climbing back to win the series after being down by 3 games. It hasn't been done in NBA Final history. So let's see what happens tonight. Have a great night.